that's the thing that makes the dog then unsettled, is that the human's behaviors are dictated by her behaviors, which that should not be that way. It should be the opposite. Because especially since we started training with her when she was just a little tiny baby, it's important to remember that though it feels like you're having to go like really high on the numbers now in comparison to when she was a baby, it's mainly because she was just a puppy. So now she's just becoming more of an adolescent dog into those adult stages. So it's totally normal that you're going to be on higher levels more frequently and consistently. No, come. Because one, she's kind of growing into her confidence. She's getting into that adolescent stage where she's pushing the limits a little bit more. And we're not correcting for like little things. We're correcting for, no, come. Like the moments where there's big distractions and a lot of like competing motivators. And if there's really big distractions, then that generally requires a little bit of a bigger correction. Because like I was talking in the lobby, that's something that is moving forward. Super important that if you're gonna correct, you have to ultimately get to what you wanted out of it. Otherwise, it'll leave her feeling more confused afterwards.
I feel bad whenever, like, I'm like, maybe she just doesn't want to go for a walk. And I'm like, why don't you want to go for a walk?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Your dog. Like, Leah's 11 and she's
Come.
like,
Yeah.
I'm over it.
Yeah. Well, and some of it, you know, that's where you can kind of make the choice preemptively, like, do I want to, if you know that there's potentially going to be a battle there about going for a walk, then you have to preemptively decide, am I prepared to follow through and make her go on the walk regardless of whether she feels like it or not? Or am I not in the mood for that? And then make your choice on whether you want to do it in the first place, you know? I would almost venture to say that some of the reason why she might get into those moods where she just doesn't want to go is probably mostly out of habit at this point, where for whatever reason, you know, that first or second time that she did that, there may have been motivation behind it, but now it's almost become a thing where it's like, okay, Ivy, let's go for a walk. And now it's just kind of created a cycle where she's like, no, I don't want to go for a walk. And she responds that certain way. And if we allow her to kind of perpetuate that pattern, then it just is going to get worse and worse.
Like some nights she's fine, she'll do it, but then it's like,
yeah,
certain nights she's just like, I'm thinking.
Have you found a correlation between like maybe the days like that she's done more that she doesn't want to walk in the evenings? You just get moody, huh?
As soon as I can even go to say the command, like she darts away.
Yeah, it tries to do something else.
And then I like am shocking her and she's like being just weird.
Sure. That kind of is the same situation of, has there been times, whether it's you or even with your mom or anyone, where maybe we've started that expectation with that command and then don't follow through on it?
Maybe, but it's like the come command, so.
Yeah. And with her and the collars and stuff, I mean, like we've talked about before, that's been like a, since she was a baby type thing. And have you worked on like pairing like the food and the treats with it and stuff, like when you do it?
Probably like today, I guess I could have, but I was in a rush.
Yeah. And part of it too is,
I'm like, you're a dog. Like, I don't understand.
well,
the deal is.
Some of it too, I think there's something to be said for not really worrying that much about it if it's not creating a really big issue. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if you're still able to put her leashes on and her collars on and do what you need to do, and it's not causing an issue and she's just like pretending to be sad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. It is what it is, you know?
Oh.
I think that, well, from a young age also, like with her like being growly about not wanting to be moved and all that kind of stuff, I think it's less about what she likes and doesn't like and more about she is very like pushy And if you allow her leeway to be pushy in certain areas and take control of certain situations and make decisions, then she's more than happy to do that. You know what I mean? So it's less about like, does she like it or not like it, and more about, is she just choosing to not want to do it at that point?
Stuff that's harder because she has her at home who, I think maybe in her mind it's like she wants to please Leah, not us. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, dependent on the relationship they have. No, come. She could have a little bit of that going on where she's bonded a little bit more heavily with her than with you guys, but ultimately, I mean, truly what it comes down to is just being very steadfast, and like when you decide you're doing something, following through and making sure that she's doing it, or otherwise not even starting that conversation in the first place. And some of that may stem from even you kind of actively letting go of like but a dog should like this thought process. You know what I mean? And not putting like either the stereotypes of most dogs or even like the personality of Leah and how she is and what she likes onto her, and instead looking at her and being like, okay, so what does she actually like? What does she find joy in? What activity can I do with her that makes it fun and exciting? Because if she truly doesn't like going on walks, that just might be her. And maybe if you found an activity that she enjoyed and really wanted to do instead, she would be less like, oh, don't put the things on me, you know? Yeah, so maybe she's a let's go out and play fetch type of girl. And I still think obviously it's important that she be able to function and go for a walk when you need her to, which she's doing totally fine at. And like you said, you took her to that event and you took her to that restaurant. Like,
it's just the neighborhood. I don't know. But she goes on them during the day too, and it's fine. So I'm like, maybe it really just is past her bedtime. Like,
she's probably tired.
She's like, screw you guys.
Probably tired. And so maybe on top of like, okay, we're starting this and we're gonna make you do it, maybe your walk is you just go out and she goes to the bathroom and you hang out in the yard and then you come back in.
She won't even do that either.
but she might if she knows that that's all it's gonna be. You know what I mean? If she's like so exhausted at the end of the day and she's like, I don't want to go for a walk around the neighborhood and that's what it's gonna be, but after a week she figures out, wow, just going out in the evenings to go to the front yard and go to the bathroom, get some treats and come back inside.
Every night at like midnight I'll wake her up.
Yeah.
Or whatever time I'm going to bed, I'll be like, you have to go out.
Yeah. So it could be that maybe she just is protesting because she has the association of like, this is really exhausting and overstimulating and I don't want to do it. So if we work through the protests, get to the activity and make the activity something she really likes or something very short and sweet, that might eliminate some of the initial like protesting then as well. There you go. And again, the boundaries you want to enforce so that way it's very predictable and consistent for her are cutting you off if her butt gets all the way up ahead of you and if she darts out. Even a little bit ahead is okay. Because I found that like making your cutoff point, like her butt actually passing you, you're gonna be a lot more clear and concise and predictable in what you're correcting than if you were to try to line up some like imaginary point on her body. You know what I mean? So it just makes it easier. But yeah, I mean, for their sock and underwear problem, they're just, even with an e-collar, just doing a correction, kind of like we talked to your mom about with Leah and the jumping and the barking and stuff. Like, you don't really have to train the dog to do anything to eradicate those behaviors. You just have to correct for it.
Right.
Throw a sock on the ground as soon as the dog goes for it.
No.
Correct them at a really high level.
It's over.
Make the sock terrible, and then they'll just never want to do it again.
Yeah, it's true though.
And potentially save their life.
On a counter ever since.
Yeah, exactly.
One sock, that's all it took.
And again, that trading off for her eventually potentially ingesting something dangerous or, you know, things like that. And the stress of thinking your dog's gonna constantly steal your food, and it's worth it. Well, and some of it too, like, again, I think it's so important the attitude that the handler has when they're enforcing things and interacting with the dog, because like your mom said, like after she corrected her, then she was super upset. She cried the whole way home. Like that type of like energy to a dog, Ivy's like, oh my God, what just happened? Like I got corrected, and then now the human is upset and crying and like just so unstable.
That's how she is, my mom is. She literally went to therapy after and probably cried to her therapist. So,
But that's the thing that makes the dog then unsettled, is that the human's behaviors are dictated by her behaviors, which that should not be that way. It should be the opposite. Yeah, moral of the story, make sure you stick to your guns. If you're gonna start correcting for something, make sure you follow through on it. Otherwise it'll leave her more confused and more obstinate moving forward.
yeah.
And then don't be afraid to use the higher levels with her now, because I think that that's what's holding you back, is you're thinking puppy Ivy,
Yeah.
or now she's a lot older.
Oh, I'm not
and
afraid to. I'm just.
She's never had a dog.
Yeah.
No, this is my first time ever having a dog.
All right, I like it. Anything at all in the last like week or so he's giving you a hard time with anything, or?
We were kind of talking about it on the way here. I'd say overall he's really good for the most part. He does do this thing where anytime I'm on the couch, he has to like at least be like halfway on me. And if I'm not petting him, he'll like nudge me.
It's not abnormal by any means, but
Yeah.
we always want to be mindful of like who the one soliciting the attention is. You know what I mean? And sometimes I find that we find ourselves in a trap where it's like 99% of the time when we're interacting with the dog, it's because the dog basically gave us a command to interact with them, right? Comes over and nudges you and you're like, all right, hey bud, how's it going? Or little things like that, right? So it's not that you could never pet him in those types of situations, but you want to be very mindful that it's not happening all the time, right? And if he's getting really intense with like the, I don't know if like when you said he's like half on you, half off of you,
Yeah.
do you mean he's actually like on you in that situation? Okay.
Like if I sit on the couch,
Yeah.
if I lay on the bed, he has to like
So-
be in physical contact.
Totally get it. So I don't mind coming up on the furniture. I don't mind any of that kind of stuff. Those are your rules, I always say. But when it gets to a point where, especially with a dog as big as he is, where he's like crawling on top of you, that's the same thing as jumping in my eyes.
Yeah.
Right? So I correct for that no differently than I would if you were to jump on somebody, right? And you want to be very strict about that boundary at least, because especially, you know, if, you know, you're predominantly doing a lot of the training and he's learning he can kind of walk all over you with those types of things, that'll create problems later on.
Okay.
So yeah, you just got to correct him for it. That's it, and he'll chill out real fast from that. And like I said, he can come up next to you. He just can't be on you.
Yeah,
So the
he's
second
always
those
like-
paws get on you, that's where we want that correction to come.
He's not good at bringing toys back if I'm trying to play fetch.
Sure.
He'll like go get the ball, but he won't like bring it back, or he'll
Yeah.
bring it back halfway and he'll just drop it.
Will he play like the keep away game, or what does he do?
He did before, but then I start like if you're not home, I start correcting him. And I'll be like, drop it, and he'll drop it.
Mm-hmm.
At first he would like growl. Yeah, if I throw something, he's like not gonna bring it back.
Well, you get into like when you're in the play side of things, right? Where it's like we're not doing training per se. We're kind of just playing and hanging out, having a good time. I would say like we can get stuck in our head sometimes as far as what play should look like, right? And like in our mind, it's like should be minimal effort for us. I throw it, you get it, you bring it back. I throw it, you get it, you bring it back, right? Where you know, yes, if I give a come command, I want to know he's going to come back over to me. But if he likes that interactiveness of like, you know, he grabs it, and we're kind of running around and playing and having a good time and stuff like that, I'm okay with that, right? I don't have an issue with that. There's plenty of dogs that just the traditional fetch is just not appealing to them. They're not into it. You know, they like more of the chase aspect. And
It's a little boring.
yeah, exactly. So my rules are, if I ask you to let it go, you got to let it go right away. But outside of that, however you guys want to play the game is totally up to you guys.
Overall, he's like a brand new dog. Like when I first met Emmett, Luka wasn't living with us. He was
Yeah.
living at his parents' house. And he would like jump and bark and like not listen to anything. And now he'll like listen and he'll play and he's like friendly. And,
Yeah, good.
Like
That's
I would
awesome.
have not been comfortable bringing him to my parents' house, but he came the other day and he was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah,
She took him just by herself.
just me. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've never had a dog. Like my whole life, my family doesn't have dogs. So
Good. That's great. So what we'll do today is we'll kind of just get you working with him a little bit, just
Okay.
kind of take a look at some of it, see if there's any big holes we got to work on or anything like that, kind of go from there.
He does get super duper excited if people come over.
Yep.
But he doesn't jump on them still.
Okay.
But he's like constantly tip tapping.
Yeah, yeah. Do
We've
you...
been working on the bed stays.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Yeah, yeah.
Longer ones. Like since we've
Yep.
met up a couple times now, like he's
Yeah.
been. I've been
Will
having
he
to do-
hold a bed stay while people are coming in?
Yeah.
He will.
He will.
He'll
Oh,
sit
okay,
there
good.
like,
He really wants to get off, but he holds it.
yeah,
holds
he'll
Okay.
hold it.
But
And-
he's still
Yeah.
will get off and I don't know. Like
If it's too long, he will get off. Like I had some friends over, and we were like, okay, stay, and he would stay, and then like I'd walk out of the room, he'd get up.
Yeah. Okay. So generally with the bed stay, when people come over, I usually do, a lot of people, I think the mistake they make is they do too short. So they'll have him hold it for a couple minutes and then release him off. And at that point, his energy is still so freaking high that he's all jazzed up and it's unmanageable still and stuff, right? I usually recommend for everybody like 10, 15 minutes. Do like that long and wait until he really gets into like a settled state of mind before you actually let him off of the bed.
Okay.
So, and that'll help you quite a bit with that. And then just stay consistent about it. Every time he breaks it, give him his correction and take him back to it. So a couple of the biggest things that you just have to keep in mind are only ever say the command one time when you ask him to do it. And once you've put him into a command, we're never going to repeat the command to get him back into it. We're only going to correct him for it, then repeat the command to get him back into it, right?
Okay.
So, for example, as you were walking up, you gave him, I think, 3 or 4 come commands, which no big deal. We're going to work on that, obviously. But instead of repeating that 3 or 4 times, after we gave that initial one, once he broke it, we would have to give him a correction for it. Because the idea here is we don't want to have to correct him because we want him to just understand once he's put in a position, whether it's a down, a bed, a come, any of those types of things, he just has to maintain that until he's released from it, right?
Okay.
So we'll have him hold this for a minute or so, and then I'll have you release him, and we'll just do a handful of these. And same deal, if he were to break this command, we would give him a correction, and then we would reset him. So we would take him as close back to that same spot that he's in, and then re-give that command once we got him there.
He does get a little distracted on walks.
Sure.
And he'll just like go off sniffing.
Yep.
Which like I kind of let him do because I know it's good for like his mental stimulation, but
You want to create time and place for it. Because the problem with like allowing him every now and then to just kind of pull off to go sniffing is we start to like water down over time the expectation of the commands. And then he never knows what the expectation of him is because it's like, well, sometimes he has to be here. Other times we'll cut him some slack if he pulls off to sniff over here. Other times we correct him for it and it just gets really, really gray. So I try to have it really black and white. Like the walk, for example, I'll break my walk up into 3 sections and I'll start off with like healing, right? Nice and strict, keep him with me, enforcing it, not letting him go off and sniff, stuff like that. Somewhere in the middle, I'll release him, and that's where I'll give him his freedom, kind of do his thing, get it out of his system, and then I'll end with that come command again and make sure that he stays nice and focused on me.
I'm also trying to bell train him to like when he has to go pee to like ring
Sure.
his bell, but he's not taking to it. I don't
Yeah.
It could be confusing. I don't know.
Are you having any issues with like housebreaking with him? No. Okay, good.
I just think it'd be cute.
First thing I would say is I would caution against worrying too much about that if you have a good system in place of how he lets you know right now. Because if we start basically saying, okay, well, we're now not going to let you out when you do that anymore. We're going to wait until you ring the bell. That could start to create a little bit of confusion, right?
Okay.
But basically how we would start to train that is we would start patterning in. Bell means go outside. Bell means go outside. So you could kind of almost like with a treat or something like that, walk to the door, trick him to like knock into that thing, and as soon as that bell goes off, open the door to let him out.
I've tried doing that, and he doesn't want to touch it for some reason.
Yeah, well, so that's just, you gotta lure it, right? Get him to follow something, yeah, change the positioning of it, whatever you need to do to get him to hit that thing. And he doesn't need to actually paw it, right? I don't care how he hits it, he can even brush into it. The idea is he needs to hear the sound of the bell going off and then go outside. Hear the sound of the bell going off, then go outside. And through repetitions of that, he'll start to correlate bell means go outside, and you'll start seeing him consciously do it then at that point. And initially, I would have no expectation of him like actually ringing it on his own without our guidance. You know what I mean? Like I said, like literally with a treat or something, get him to follow it like behind the bell so he like brushes into it or something like that.
Okay.
And do that every time right before you let him out. So, you know, if anything, you could just forget even going outside. Like if you just want to teach him to ring the bell, you could start by that, right? And same concept, right? Teach him to hit the bell. As soon as he hits the bell, yes, give him a treat, right? Teach him to hit the bell every time he hits it, yes, give him a treat. Tell him no.
No.
Give your tap. And then what I want you to do is walk back to him here and then tell him down again.
Down.
Perfect. And then you can go ahead and walk away again. So that sequence right there, if we identified the mistake with our no marker the second that he made it, we reinforced it with the correction, then we went back to him to reset him back into position, even though he fixed himself, is the formula for all these commands, whether it's a bed stay, whether it's a down stay, whether it's a recall. Now, the second thing I look at is the motivation of the correction, right? So every time I give a correction, I try to ask myself, did he care too much, too little, or just right? And right there, when you hit that button, the reason why I asked if he actually hit it is because I couldn't tell at all that he got a correction there, right? So what I would do is I would increase your level by maybe 5 to 10, somewhere around there.
I just know like I'm still working on the timing too.
Sure.
That's something
Yeah.
It's just the timing of like correcting.
The biggest thing is just slow yourself down a little. We talked about that last time, obviously. And sometimes I even like with the remote, like not even having it in my hand to focus on my verbal timing with things. Because like, let's say it's in my pocket or something and he made that mistake. My first thing, a lot of people's first thing that they do is they scramble to try to find the remote, where I would say like, don't worry about that, right? Because the first thing we need to do is identify the mistake. And once we've identified the mistake, you got all the time in the world to get the remote and give your correction, right? So at that point, if it's in your hands, you could force yourself not to touch it, and he makes the mistake, you first and foremost, no, right? We've identified the mistake, then get it, give your correction, go reset him, and that's kind of the best way to make sure you have good timing with it. And that also helps you not get him into a trap of needing to see that remote in your hand at all times. You know what I mean? He'll be focused more on you as opposed to the remote.
Sometimes he doesn't respond to a regular no, but I have to like change my inflection, and then he'll respond.
Well, so keep in mind, right, responding to a no, right, we wouldn't intensify our no marker in order to get him to respond to it. Because if you look at why would he respond to the no marker in the first place, it's because if we get real technical with it, we're classically conditioning that no marker to predict correction. So it's creating almost like an involuntary response as if he got corrected, right? So as long as that correction comes after your no marker every single time, and as long as that correction is motivating enough to him, that's what will get him responding to the no, not you increasing the tone of your voice or anything like that.
Okay.
Cool, why don't you go ahead and grab him?
The leash?
Yeah,
Okay.
but don't release him yet, just pick up that leash. Now mark with no, give your tap. Perfect, then tell him down again.
Down.
Now, two things. One, that correction, you could tell he cared about it, seemed perfect, so we're gonna leave it where it's at. But see how right there, as you were saying no, you were scrambling for your remote also?
I didn't realize it. Oh.
Right? So kind of focus on that a little bit over your next couple of weeks, is get that remote out of your hands, you know, and focus on your verbal timing with things, and then just have the remote back up the things that you're saying, right? So now, that's all right, you can kind of grab it and just kind of weasel it out of there however you need to. There we go. Mark with no.
No.
There you go. Now give your tap, and then tell him down. Perfect. Now see how that time responded to the no, right? We still backed it up with the correction, but because it's starting to predict correction, meaning the correction is coming after the fact, he's responding to the word, so. Well, why don't you go ahead and just walk around the other side of the car here, and we'll start with a little out-of-sight stuff with this. Yeah, that's normal. I would say the out of sight stuff is always the hardest. It was even that way with my dogs. Like, you know, I used to have to practice that a lot, especially my one. He was so mischievous with it. Like I would do, it was actually pretty funny. Like I would have him in here and I would put him on a bed, and there would be like 2 or 3 beds on the floor. And I would go out in the back area for a minute, and then I would like come back in and he would be on a different bed. And he'd just be staring at me like, I didn't get up. Like I'm on a bed stay. And then I kind of for a minute was like playing around with it, where I would like go out, close the door, and then open the door really quick, and he'd be like running to the next bed. It's like playing musical beds. That's funny. Yeah. Very good. All right, you can go ahead and release them and then put them back on this bed. They said, got it. Cool, and same deal, we'll go over this way first. No, it's fine. The problem is right now he's heavily debating if he should make the mistake or not, right? And that's why he's like ramping up. He's like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? So what we're waiting for is for him to either commit to, I'm not gonna do it, or him to be like, I think I can get away with it and try it, so we can correct it and then get past that hurdle and just further solidify in his mind, can't do it. All right, so next what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk out front. We're just gonna close the door and just hang out there. So notice after that correction, he settled down a little more. He wasn't quite as antsy on it, so that's what we were looking to see. So we'll see what we get here. And this will be a good example of like, when we're out here and the store is closed, you're not really gonna hear when they make the mistakes. We'll just hang out here for a couple minutes, and then regardless of if they get off or whatever, once we walk back in, if they're off of it, we're gonna correct and take them back regardless of if they've been off for a second.
At the same level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Regardless of if they've been off for a second or for 30 seconds, so.
That makes sense, like, that he's getting more amped up, like, thinking about making mistakes.
Yeah.
I always wonder, like, when he cries like that.
It's the
like,
debate, you know, that's what it is.
He's in his head, like, do I do it, do I not do
Yeah.
it?
Wow, I'm impressed. Good job, dogs. All right, why don't you go ahead and just release them off and let them hang out for a minute. There we go. I'm pretty impressed with how they're looking.
Okay.
I mean, you're making really steady progress with stuff, you know?
Yeah, they seem loads better from last week. So.
Oh, loads better. I mean, there's, you know, just a couple little things to tighten up. And really, it's not that there's adjustments you need to make aside from just emphasizing certain things more, right? So the out of sight stuff, knowing that that was an issue for them, we're going to put that into a little bit of practice here over the next week or so.
Okay.
Get that under control, obviously. And then the walking, just keep staying on them. But the walk looks dramatically better. So as you continue to set those last couple boundaries of don't pick that food up off the ground, you know, don't get that far ahead still. You know, you weren't needing to correct very much. And they got the game after that. So I think they look really, really awesome right now.
Perfect.